Good morning, I'm Trish and I love yoga. I thought we would work on a couple things today. One is the sciatic pain that some people have in the glute that also can go down the back of the leg. It can go down both legs. And it can be caused by too much sitting, not enough moving. And even though we might be taking more walks during quarantine, I know I am finding myself sitting on the couch a little more, sitting at my computer a little more. I'm not driving as much, but I still need some help stretching out this muscle. And I thought along those lines, we could also talk about the connection between our mind and our body and how our thoughts affect our muscles, our ligaments, and every cell in our body. Let's begin with a couple deep breaths in through the nose and out the mouth, just clearing breaths. Smile a little bit, and then make yourself comfortable. And that might means you're gonna just sit on your mat nice and tall, or you might wanna lay back and relax. You can use pillows under your knees, under your head, stretching out and beginning to notice again what it feels like when you breathe. Breathing in and out, beginning to steady the breath, creating a nice gentle rhythm in the body. Breathing slowly in through your nose, out through your mouth if you like, eventually in and out both through the nose. I love this quote by Bernie Clark from his book, The Complete Guide to Yin Yoga. He says, "The mind and the breath are like two fish in a school. When one moves, the other moves. If our mind is agitated, our breath is short and choppy. If the breath is short and choppy, the mind becomes agitated. However, if we slow the breath down and breathe more deeply, the mind also slows down." So just begin to notice the rhythm of your breath and the rhythm of your mind. What are your thoughts like today? What are you thinking about? How quickly are the thoughts changing from one to the next? How long are the stories that you're telling? And can you start to vacillate between what you're thinking and how you're breathing until the pace becomes slower and slower? And just as the breath affects the mind and the mind affects the breath, the mind also affects your body. So if you think you're scared, your heart will race. If you think you're safe, your heart will be a steady beat. And in this way, we can create the peace in our own lives by choosing our thoughts. Not right away necessarily, but eventually over time recognizing, oh, I can change that. It's just a thought. As you're relaxing here on your mat today, keep breathing nice and slow, feeling your body, watching your thoughts as they slow down. And feel free to listen to this beautiful reading by Mark Nepo from his book, The Book of Awakening. It's one of my favorite daily reading books. This is from April 22nd. It's called It Is Enough. And that's where I got the affirmation for the board today. If you can't see what you're looking for, see what's there. Interesting concept. That's the first quote. And then he goes on to say, one of the most difficult things for us to accept is that beneath all our dreams and disappointments, we live and breathe in abundance. It's hard when in pain to believe that all we ever need is before us, around us, within us. And yet, it is true. Like trees waiting for morning, something as great and as constant as the earth holds us up and turns us ever so slowly toward the light. Our task is only to be rooted and patient. Mysterious as it is, no matter our pain or excitement, our drama or circumstance, all that we could hope for is here. We lack nothing. The humble challenge of being human is not in agreeing or disputing this truth. That is as fruitless as arguing against gravity. Our humble way, if we can open to it, is to root ourselves beneath the 1,000 dreams and excuses that keep us from the ground we walk. Time and again, we are asked to outlast what we want and hope for in order to see what is there. It is enough. Keep breathing nice and slow. And the reason I thought of sciatica with this and this reading is that when you have sciatic pain, it feels like it's going to go on forever. It feels like there's nothing else. And not just sciatic pain, of course. Any kind of pain feels total. But the truth is that there is more to life. There are other parts of the body that feel fine. There will be better days, and there have been in the past. And I think it's our job to notice that moment by moment when we can remember. So let's do a little meditation here as you continue to breathe on your back or seated. Consider your favorite tree or plant. And if you don't know the name of it, that's fine. Just imagine a pretty one that you've seen. And though you may not see anything happening, imagine that you are watching it grow. Know that as you watch it grow, the earth is carrying it toward the sun. Imagine yourself as such a tree or plant. Close your eyes and know that though you may not see anything, you are growing. And that something larger than you is carrying you toward the light. Though none of it is visible, feel this mystery and whisper to yourself, I am growing. I am being carried toward the light. I lack nothing. Feel free to stay with those thoughts as long as you need to. Continuing to breathe. Choosing when you feel like it's time for you to begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Begin breathing a little deeper, a little more fuller, expanding your chest, opening the ribs, maybe spreading your arms out a little wider, slowly making your way onto the floor if you haven't gotten there already. Begin to stretch out one leg and the other. Maybe take your arms out wide or over your head. Maybe side stretch, swing the ribs a little bit from side to side as we move into our practice this morning. Eventually, after full body stretch, you'll begin to bring your knees in toward your chest, squeezing them in, feeling a little squeeze on one knee more than the other. By the way, I forgot to say in the beginning that we're going to need a block and a strap. So if you don't have those, you could grab them now. We're pulling the knees in, maybe rocking a little bit. Eventually pushing the feet up in the air. You can have the knees bent, unbend, and stretch them a few times. And then move into your feet, moving your ankles, wiggling your toes. See if you can spread your toes all the way apart. Wiggle them and try to get some light in between the toes. And then squeeze the toes up, squinch them, and flatten them. Do a little Barbie foot. That's where it looks like we're wearing high heel shoes. And then flat feet, like we're Ken again, in our flat shoes, and then pointed shoes, up and down a couple times. Eventually we're going to bring the right knee into the chest. Maybe move the left ankle a couple more times. Take a deep breath. On the exhale, bring the leg or the foot to the floor. Holding on to that right knee, begin to kind of rock it side to side, moving it. Now the sciatic nerve runs right through the piriformis muscle, which is right down here in the top of the glute. So pretty much everything that we do in yoga is going to affect that area because it's right in the target area of the hips. Begin to open the knee a little wider, stretching out the other leg on the mat a little more. Begin to rock the hip over, taking that opposite hand to the knee, rolling. Eventually you're going to roll wide with the knee and then cross it over one more time. Slowly moving, finding your way into your tree pose on your back, where you have one leg long, the other knee is bent with the sole of the foot touching the inside of that long leg. The arms can stay down on your torso or stretched up into a giant V shape as if you have long branches for arms. Push out through the heel of that long leg, curl the toes back toward your nose and take a big breath in. Hold on to that breath for maybe 4 or 5 beats, and then let it go. Bring the arms down, bring the knee that's wide back up, bend the other knee, and bring both knees back into the chest. Rocking on the low back, holding on to the left knee, this time pushing the right foot up. You can play with the toes and ankles again. You can keep the other ones moving too. Eventually, deep breath in, push the heel up a little higher. Exhale, lowering the leg or the foot all the way to the floor. Beginning to move that left hip, rocking it side to side, making some big circles. The more we move the joints, the more fluid they are and the less stiff. Eventually, you'll begin to open the knee wide, stretch out the other leg so it's not in the way. Opposite hand to that knee, roll it over. We're just rocking on the hip, opening wide and rolling it over. Just a couple times until we're ready to move into tree pose with the knee wide and the sole of the foot touching the inside of the long leg. Flatten up that long foot. Continue to hold the hands on the torso or stretch them into that wide V. Deep breath in through the nose. Hold on to the breath for 4 or 5 beats. And then let it go out the mouth. Lowering the arms, bringing the knee back to center. Let's bend the other knee. Both feet are on the floor, rocking the knees side to side. Choose how far apart you would like your feet to be for your rocking twist. The wider the feet, the more you get a stretch across the front of the body, the front of the legs, the thighs. The closer together the feet are, the more you'll feel this up in your back. So it's up to you what you like and what you'd like to feel today. Bring the knees back to center. Let's put the soles of the feet together. Let the knees go wide. You can even add a little bit of weight by placing the hands on the inner thighs. Take a breath here, nose toward the sky. Begin to press the soles of the feet together, but not very hard, just so that you can feel the pads of the toes and the balls of the feet and the heels touching each other. Take another breath in, a little bit of engagement in the legs. Squeeze the leg muscles a little bit, the knees, and breathe again. And release. The soles of the feet go back to the floor, knees go up. Let's take the right ankle and lift the leg up with the knee bent. Turn the foot and place the ankle on the front of the other thigh, right around the knee, right below the knee. And then begin to rock again. It feels pretty good. Don't go very far at first. Keep your nose pointing up toward the sky. Face soft, shoulders relaxed. You can turn your palms down toward the floor and widen the arms out a little bit so you get a little bit of leverage with your arms. Eventually, we're going to bring the legs back to center. Keep the ankle crossed. You can grab a block and place it under the foot that's on the floor, and this will begin to stretch the piriformis muscle. You can start to feel that in that outer hip and up into the glute. You can keep rocking if it feels good, and you can stay right here, starting to relax the legs, letting the knee just kind of get slack. You can also pump the knee in and out a little bit, getting down into that hip socket. Keeping your foot on the block as long as you like or the whole time. You could choose at any point to bring that other knee toward you. Some people like to slide the right hand through the hole between the legs, grab hold around the left thigh, but not everyone's arms are that long. So if it feels like your shoulders and your head are being pulled off the floor by your arms, just grab hold of that shin of the other foot that's right in front of you. Slowly drawing the legs towards you. This is increasing the stretch down this outer edge. This is where we're trying to open up the stretch today for the piriformis and the sciatic nerve. Just a quick warning though, sometimes these stretches can actually aggravate the sciatic nerve. So if at any time you start to feel a little anxious, you can notice if your forehead is wrinkling, then come out of the pose. Let's all go ahead and come out of this pose. You can place your foot on the floor, push the block out of the way. And we'll press into the foot that's on the ground, lift the hips and scoot them in the direction toward the right edge of the mat. Good. Flatten up the foot that's up there on your, the ankle is crossed, and then roll over toward the left, planting the foot flat on the floor. You can even help your knee stay up by pressing it with the hand, the left hand. You can feel this deep stretch right through the hip, right here through the waist. The arm can go out wide or even up. Stretch one big breath. Bring the right arm down. Breathe in on your exhale. Rock those legs back up. Scoot the hips back to center. Uncross that ankle. Maybe rock the knees a little bit side to side. Slowly coming back to center, bringing the left foot up in the air and then crossing the ankle onto that thigh. And we begin with that nice, slow, very slight rocking. The foot that's in the air is flexed, the foot that's on the thigh. Palms down, arms wide, nose toward the sky. Keep rocking. And then you can choose to come back to center and just stay with your foot on the floor. You could grab that block and scoot it over, put your foot on there. See how that feels before you go any farther. If you'd like, then you can press the knee open and close a little bit of pumping in the hip. Stay here, or maybe grab hold of the thigh, the right thigh, or that left shin, bringing the unit of the legs toward you, deepening the piriformis stretch. Let's breathe 3 times deeply. You'll notice I didn't have a stretch the leg up in the air, the right leg. If you wanted to do that, you totally could. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't deepen the stretch. Slowly bringing the foot back to the block and then to the floor, pushing the block out of the way. Rock again just a little bit, and then feeling the sole of that foot on the floor, press into it as you lift your hips and scoot them to the left this time. Flatten up this foot and place it down on the floor next to you. Keep the knee in the air as high as it feels good. You can even press the knee open a little bit. Adding the stretch, stretching up with that arm, the left arm up. Breathe into the side and the twist. Bringing the arm back down. Inhale. On the exhale, lift the unit of the legs and uncross. And rock side to side again. Nice and slow. We're just warming up the hips. Getting everything ready for our standing and kneeling. Bring yourself back to center. Knees are still bent. Begin to bring the right knee into the chest again. Choosing to keep this other knee bent or the leg stretched out. Begin to open the knee wider and wider so that now it's on the outside of your ribs. You can stay here. This is one variation of happy baby, a half happy baby. You can slide the hand under the thigh, lift the foot, and pull the knee in toward your armpit and stay here. Or you can grab the outside edge of the foot, bring that foot flat up toward the sky, but let the knee and the thigh open wide on the side of the ribs, choosing your variation of happy baby. And breathing deeply. This is a nice deep stretch down into the thigh and the hip. If you'd like to add a stretch on the other side, you can begin to stretch the leg out, take the arm over your head and inhale long through your heel and out your fingers. As you exhale, begin to bring that long leg into a bend. Grab hold of the shin, release the foot you've been holding on to and let it float to the floor. Begin to open the left leg wider and wider. Choose to stay here holding the shin wide. Maybe slide your hand behind the thigh with the foot in the air, or grab the outside of the foot and press it up toward the sky. Half happy baby here. Stay with your knee bent, stretching your arm or lengthening out the leg. Long breath, press through the heel. And release. On the exhale, bring the other knee in. Release the foot that you've been holding. Both knees are into the chest. Keeping them wide, rock side to side, opening across the pubic bone into the low hips and the low back. If you'd like, you can stay right here, squeezing the knees into the chest, holding onto the shins. You can hold on behind the legs, or you can grab the outer feet for a full happy baby, 2 big breaths. Releasing the feet, keep them wide, maybe off the edges of your mat, and soften the low back. And then rock the legs all the way over to one side. Get soft and heavy with a breath. And bringing them up on that exhale. Rocking them to the other side. Breathe in. Exhale, bring them back up. You can do this a few more times. Beginning to walk the feet closer together. We'll move into our last pose on our back here, arch pose. Now, if you'd like, you can use your block. I don't know where mine went. And you can lift the hips and slide the block right up under the tailbone. I always like to have just a little bit of bun hanging off the block. It really depends on what works for your low back. And you'll know you found a good spot because you'll all of a sudden be able to go, oh, I can stay here forever. And inversion is where we bring the heart above the head. So if you feel too much pressure in your face or your eyes, please just come right off the block and stay nice and flat. You can put an inversion into your practice by simply lifting your legs in the air. Whether your feet are on the block or not, you can go ahead and bring them up. Maybe rock them a little bit. Bending the knees again, choosing where you'd like to place your feet. You can keep your hips on your block, or you can begin to squeeze the glutes and lift off the block. You can keep the block there if you'd like to lift and lower to a higher floor, or you can remove the block. Hold your pose, your arch pose. Feel that strength in your thighs, but don't hold your breath. Keep the breath flowing. Breathe especially down into your belly. You can watch the balloon of your belly lift with the breath in, and then soften with the breath out. As you may remember from last week, holding a pose for at least 30 seconds is where we begin to build our bones. Anything longer than that is just going to be gravy. Now, in your arched position, try not to move your head very much, especially if you have any neck issues.
Keep the nose pointing straight in the air. When you get tired, you'll know that it's time to come down, and you can just slowly lower the back. Soften for a moment before you begin to move, and then choose if you'd like to bring the knees in or stretch the legs out. Eventually, we're all going to take one more full body stretch. Arms over the head. Wiggle the toes, maybe wiggle the fingers. Bend the knees. Good. Rolling over onto one side. Take a moment in seed pose with your head on your arm or your block or a pillow. Feel your breath, feel your heart, and remember a little bit of gratitude for everything that is good in your life, or maybe just one thing at a time. One more breath. Bringing the top hand to the floor in front of you, roll forward and push yourself up to seated. Taking the center of your mat, stretch your legs out wide. Feel free to sit up on a block or a blanket or a bolster, anything that can help you sit taller. The higher you get, the more the hips will be tipped forward and the easier it'll be on your hip flexors. In fact, mine are kind of tired, so I'm going to sit up on my block today. So wide stretch. This right here is helpful for sciatica. Especially if you're having pain, don't roll forward. Any kind of sciatic pain, you're going to keep your spine long and tall and just focus on softening into the backs of the legs. Maybe widening the feet a little more, pressing out through the heels. Don't lock the knees. Breathe deep. You can take your arms wide. Slowly take the hands behind you. You can reach for your opposite elbows. Roll the shoulders back. Keep the chin parallel to the floor. If you'd like a little more stretch and you're not having any sciatic pain, you can hinge forward in the hips. We're just stretching the inner groin, the inner thigh. Big breath. Come back to center. Drop your chin. Slowly let your shoulders soften, your hands swing out, and then bring the head up with your hands. You can do this a few times, just floating the hands down and then back up again. Let's bring one knee up and place the foot in front, and then the other knee up and place the foot in front. Take a moment here and then stretch one leg out. Let's stretch our left leg out. I'm not mirroring you. And you can stay here if you like for another moment or two. Eventually, see what it feels like to open your knee wide. It doesn't feel as good sitting on a block for me, so I'm going to take the block out. One leg is out straight in front of us. The other knee is bent in a half butterfly. Deep breath. If you're okay to lean forward, you're going to lean into this. Again, with sciatic pain, don't lean into the side where you have the pain. Just stay nice and tall and soft. Once you've started to lean forward, you can take the opposite hand and cross it over the leg. Take the left hand to your hip and gently twist. Keep breathing down low into your belly. Slowly bring that left hand back to your knee. You can slide both of the hands down towards your toes. Add a little rounding, only if you're not worried about osteoporosis or sciatica. In those cases, you would stay nice and tall, just softening the back of that leg. The longer you can stay in the pose, the longer the body realizes that it can change and heal. Slowly coming up, turning toward the knee that is bent. We'll take both hands on either side of that knee, stretch out through that long leg, but roll the weight off of that leg and onto the right hip as you begin to walk your hands forward, keeping your spine long if you need to keep it long to protect it, or allowing your spine to round, and a deep breath. Pushing up, leading with your head, walking those hands in. Bring the knee slowly back up, stretch the leg out, bend the knees a little bit just to even out the sides of the body.
Bending the other leg, slowly opening the knee, getting yourself situated, both sit bones on the floor. Feel free to slide something underneath the knee if you need some support on either side. Taking both hands right around the knee, lean the belly forward slightly. Stay here as you begin to cross the right hand over to that left. This is my left hand over to my right leg. Starting to twist as I slide my left hand to my left hip and twist. Deep breath. Taking the right hand and bringing it forward, both hands back on the leg. Feel free to slide down the shin or stay at whatever spot your stretch needs to stay today. Breathing slow and deep. Bringing your head up first. This time bringing the sole of the right foot up to meet the left foot. You can keep the block under your knee if you like, or take it out as you maybe move your feet forward a little bit, your hips back a little bit. Take hold of your ankles or your feet, and we're just going to flap our butterfly wings, moving into the muscles. A little bit of a stretch, and you can keep moving for a deep breath or two, or you can start to slowly lean forward. If you have rounding in your spine, a full butterfly pose, you might want to bring your nose towards your heels. Mine does not want to do that today, so I'm just going to stay nice and tall and take one more big breath. Taking the hands behind me, bringing the knees up. You can stay where you are as you begin. I'm just turning sideways on my mat so you can see me. Bringing yourself down to your elbows, your knees are still bent. Taking the right ankle, again, in front of the left thigh, just kind of flap that knee a little bit. Rock a little if it feels okay to you. And then find a spot where you can feel a stretch. If you don't feel a stretch in the outer right hip, that bent knee hip, then go ahead and keep coming up until you feel the stretch. And you'll feel that stretch right here in this side hip. You can come up as high as it feels good to you, and we'll take 2 deep breaths here. Chin parallel to the floor. Don't lock those elbows. Bringing yourself slowly back onto the elbows. Uncross that ankle. Maybe rock the knees a little bit. Back to center. Take the left ankle in front of the right thigh. Stay here, maybe rock a little. If this is enough stretch for you, just stay here. If it's not enough stretch, you'll make your way up to the height of the stretch and 2 breaths. Coming out of the pose, back onto the elbows, release the ankle, roll the knees over and come slowly up to your table pose. Hands and knees, taking a few cat-cows, rocking that pelvis up and down a few times. Just enjoying the movement of the spine. Remember, you can always do everything that we do on our hands can also be done on our elbows. You can take a moment, maybe twist out those wrists before we move into our sequence. Swing the hips a little bit, side to side. Coming back up to table pose. We'll stretch out the right foot, rock into the heel a couple of times, rock forward and back. See if you can feel the stretch in the back of the leg into the calf muscle. Feels pretty good. And then centering between the hands and the knee that's bent on the floor, begin to lift and lower, just kind of pump that long leg. Take a breath or two, starting to feel the weight, the strength in the leg. Keep the belly snugged in so that you're supported. Breathing mostly around the mid-ribs. And then begin to bend the knee and press the foot up and down a few times, flat toward the sky. Now we're going to start to swing the leg to the side, flat, and then back to center, push the foot up. Swing it to the side, and then push it back up. You might feel this more in the other leg. That's fine. If you get a cramp, always come down, release, the leg, move the joint around a little bit. Good. So when you're finished and you've done a couple of those to the side and back, the next time you swing to the side, put the foot down right next to the knee that's on the floor. Can you see that? Bent right there. And we're gonna start to flap this knee, that right knee, back and forth. You can keep both hands on the floor. Then slowly begin to step the foot wider. And we're gonna rock here in the joint of the hips. Don't push. You can always take a hand to that thigh. You can keep your hands in front of you, or you can slowly come up to a kneeling. We're just rocking in the joints. You might scoot the foot out a little more. This is our kneeling warrior 2. You can even take your hands up, rock a little bit side to side. You can add a little stretch, side stretch, swinging the arms up and over to each side as you swing those hips side to side. Nice. And the arms slowly come back down in front of you like table pose, and the knee comes back to center. Rock a little bit side to side. And then we'll begin that sequence again on the other side. Table pose, a few cat-cows. Stretching back with the left foot this time. Maybe roll the, if you want to tuck the toes under, push into the heel a few times. And then begin to pump the leg up and down. Eventually beginning to bend the knee and pump the foot up and down. We're going to move slowly into swinging the leg to the side and then bringing it back, pushing the foot up in the air. Swinging the leg to the side, pushing it back up into the air. And you should be starting to feel a lot of weight and heat in the standing knee as you move through this work in the core and the glutes and the hips. Good. Eventually, when the knee goes wide, bring your foot to the mat, but remember, place it quite close to the other knee at first with the knee bent. Flap that knee a little bit side to side, gazing down, long neck, shoulders slide down the back. Slowly beginning to step the foot wider, rocking the hips side to side. We're moving into that warrior 2, kneeling warrior 2. Slowly coming up if it feels okay, always keeping a block nearby. If this is too much for your knee, then you're just gonna come right out of the pose. Maybe take a down dog or a table pose. Even feel free to come down onto your belly, work a little bit on your locust pose. So those of us who are still on our knees, rocking, we're just gonna come nice and tall. Feel free to stand here. I have my back toes curled under. It's nice and stabilizing. You can bring the arms up and begin to windmill them side to side, getting a little side stretching. And slowly back to center, arms wide, and then slowly bringing the hands down in front of you, back to table pose, knees on the mat. Rock a little bit side to side. This is where you might need a block. Right leg forward on the front of the mat. We're moving into our lunge. So one foot is forward. The other foot I like to have under the other, where the other foot could go, I would put the block. The back leg has a diagonal on it. So you get this nice stretch across the front thigh there. Feel free to curl those back toes under and lift into your lunge and straighten the front knee and re-bend it a few times. Really nice deep stretch for the big muscles of the legs. Perfect. Bringing the knee back down. Begin to walk yourself up to your knee, to your thigh. The shoulders come up. Start to move the hips back so that they now are stacked, shoulders, hips, and knee over that back knee. And the front leg can be a little bit, foot can be a little bit forward. Begin to push down into both your knee that's on the floor and your foot in front of you. Imagine they're stretching the mat apart. I think we did this last week. And this time, instead of bringing the arms up, you might just reach up with them, but then let them go wide and come down behind you. And you might just lay them on the base of your spine. You might grab at opposite elbows, or you might link your fingers together and press them down as you open your chest and take a big breath, looking forward, maybe slightly upward. Releasing the arms, bringing the hands back to the floor near the foot. Again, let's curl the back toes under, lift that back knee, rock in those legs. We're gonna slowly bring the back foot forward, so in our standing forward fold for just a moment. Bend those knees nice and deep. Lean the weight into that left foot that you just stepped up and step way back with the right foot. We're moving back into the other side. The block can now switch hands. Beginning to bring the back knee down into that low lunge. Got a nice long line of stretch on that back leg. Maybe rock a little bit. You can always lift back into your lunge at any time to get the deeper stretch. This is where you get to enjoy your own practice a little bit. Slowly coming up, walking the hands onto the thigh, rock the hips back so that now shoulders, hips, and knee on the floor are all in alignment. And we're facing forward, knee and nose and toes all pointing in the same direction. You can swing the arms up, let them open wide, and then slide down to the base of your spine and stretch open your chest for 2 full breaths. Bringing the hands forward to the floor or your block. Curl those back toes under, lift the back knee, long lunge, stretch the legs. Eventually stepping the back foot forward into a deep forward fold, standing, feet about, hips width apart. Bring the elbows to the thighs, nice flat back. Yeah. Kind of gather your breath, nice deep breaths. You can grab your block and let's bring it with us as we slowly stand up, lifting through the back of the head. Take a moment, maybe swing those hips side to side a little bit. We're gonna do a little chair practice with our block again between our thighs. Remember, that's optional. If you don't have a block or if you don't like to have a block, then just let that be. Having a block there is a nice way of engaging the pelvic floor. As you press the legs together, holding the block, the base of the perineum is able to engage and tone slightly. That's why I like to use it. Let's take a couple more deep breaths. Don't lock your knees, just a little bend in those knees. Let's take a momentary side stretch. Keep your hips mostly centered, stretching the top of the body. And the other one. The other top, the side of the body. And then coming onto the flat of your feet, just rock the weight between your toes and your heels. A little bit of balance. You can even bend the knees a little bit there. Coming back to a neutral spot, the feet are balanced, spine is tall. Begin to bend your knees. At first, you're just sitting straight down, so the hips are still over your heels. And this is a nice, tall chair position. This is a variation of chair you can stay in. You can really feel the quads engage. This is a little easier on the knees. If you want to go deeper, your butt swings back. Your hands can slide down your thighs. Maybe your elbows come to right above your knees. And the knees stick out over the feet. But the weight in this pose is in the heels. The lift, you can even lift the toes off the floor a little bit, yeah. But then put them back down. So you have that connection. You can reach forward with your arms. You can take the arms back. You can take the arms up. Pull the belly in. Take another deep breath. Gently press into the floor as you lift through the crown of your head. Nice. Shake out your hands a little bit. Let's just step a little bit. Step in a circle. So you just feel the weight shifting from side to side. Yeah. And then back to center. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna add a little bit of work in the glutes. The chair pose already works that a little bit. We're gonna get a little deeper. So move into your variation of chair, whether that's a tall chair or a deeper, lower chair. And this time, instead of letting the weight of the body be in the heels, We're gonna lift the heels, come up onto the toes. Oh yeah, wake up the backs of those legs. Deep breaths. Dropping the heels and pressing yourself back up. Good. Let's go ahead and take the block out. Let's do a little marching. Let's start to march and tap the same thigh with the same hand. This is just creating a lateral frequency in the body, just very even, left to left, right to right. Good. And then planting the feet, wipe your hands off, dust them off, and then come back to lifting and lowering the knees, but then cross the hand over to the opposite knee. Now we're creating the back and forth flow of energy from hemisphere to hemisphere, because the right side of the brain works the left side of the body, and vice versa. So we're just switching on the energy current in the body. It runs in a figure 8. And slowly coming back to center and just letting the hands shake off. Come up to the top of your mat. We're gonna slowly make our way back down to the floor now. Slide your hands down your thighs, bend your knees, tailbone back. Nice deep forward fold. Take your hands to the mat, step back into your table pose or down dog. Lift up through the tailbone, whether you're in table or down dog. And then round and tip the tailbone down. And you can do this in table or down dog. So we're doing some cat-cow in this position. And eventually, we're going to bring the knees to the floor if we haven't already and walk them back and back and back until we come down onto our belly. And just rest. Make a little pillow for your head. Maybe rock your hips a little bit. Try to breathe in and out through your nose, just to slow the breathing down. And when you feel ready, maybe turn your face toward your left side. Bring your left knee up, flat onto the mat. This is half squished frog. The other leg can relax, top of the foot can be on the floor. One of my teachers says it's like bringing the knee up toward the armpit, but they don't touch. We're going to take 3 big breaths into our belly here, allowing the low back and this hip and glute to soften. If you're holding on to the muscle here, try to consciously relax it and let it go. A nice way to do that is to maybe squeeze the muscle and then consciously let go. Deep breaths. Bringing the head back to center. You can come up onto your elbows, see how that feels for your low back. Or you might just come up onto the front elbow, kind of roll onto the other side, opposite that knee, and begin to straighten the knee out. We're gonna roll onto our right side. We just had the left knee wide. Swing that right foot, the under leg forward, and then slowly roll. You can kind of stay rolling here. Start to come up onto your elbows. And you can stay here. You're stretching that, you're laying on the muscle that you're stretching. You can stay here with the face more forward, or you can begin to turn into a twist, which kind of rolls that top hip over a little more. This is called twisted sphinx variation. I don't know, I should probably call it variation number 5. There's so many ways to do twisted sphinx. You can stay quite low, or you can come up higher depending on your low back. And breathe. Try to just soften and relax this leg that's swinging out in front of you. With the next breath, if you haven't started to walk up already, start to walk up, bending the knee that's under you, and begin to roll onto the shin, coming into pigeon, your form of pigeon. And you can do a sloppy pigeon, which is still resting on the right hip with the right knee bent, the foot just kind of out to the side, and beginning to lie down there. Or you can, of course, slide a block or a bolster up under the hip, staying up a little higher. You can always stay up in high flying pigeon or come down and relax. This will be our deepest stretch for that piriformis muscle
nice deep breaths. We need about 4 or 5 really deep breaths here. Just calming the nervous system. Make sure you can still feel your toes. If anything goes asleep, that means it's time to move. Eventually, we're going to push up. Let's go ahead and sit up. Swing the legs around. Roll yourself onto your belly, facing the other direction. Let's see how that goes. Relaxing onto the belly, rocking the hips, breathing down low into the diaphragm. Beginning to slide the right knee wide into that half squished frog with the foot sideways along the edge of the mat there. Breathing and softening. Maybe squeeze that glute again and then let it go to really allow it to relax. Just one more breath here. If you'd like to come up into Sphinx, you could do that for a moment. Eventually, we're going to roll onto the left shoulder, straightening the right leg out, swing the bottom leg forward. See how that feels? And stay here for a moment. This might be enough of a stretch for your leg underneath in the glute. Or you might start to come up, maybe just onto your elbows, turning your face toward the top of your mat. Relaxing the legs as much as you need to. A little bend in the knee on the bottom leg is fine, or you can play with pushing out through the heel, rocking the hip. Slowly seeing how it feels to be up in a full twisted Sphinx, nice and tall. It's more like a twisted seal. As you continue to come up, you're going to begin to bend your knees, especially the knee that's closest to you. We're going to roll into our pigeon pose from here, keeping the heel wide as you like, coming up onto the shin if it feels good, walking the long leg back and coming down using props. Just finding a spot where you feel a stretch and you can begin to relax. Lifting your head, beginning to push yourself up, slowly walking up, drag the back foot forward, sitting up nice and tall, just stretch out through your legs, hands behind you, take a moment, just soften, a very soft staff pose, don't worry about bringing the shoulders right up over the hips, just take a moment, wiggle those toes. And this is where we're going to need our strap. So we'll begin to lay back, grab your strap. Also make sure you have your block nearby, wherever you can reach it, so it's there for you. We're going to lay all the way back. Maybe the strap can just stay for a moment on your belly as you breathe. 3 or 4 breaths here, just softening the low back, letting the body recognize that now it's back on its spine again, back on the floor. Feel the beating of your heart. It's a great moment for gratitude, those transitioning moments, great way to be present. Eventually, let's go ahead and bend the knees, pull them into the chest, wrap the strap around both balls of the feet, and push those feet up high in the air, one end of each strap in each hand, one end of the strap in each hand, good. And just begin to pump a little bit, pulling the knees in towards you, pulling the toes in towards you. You can have a bend in the knees, and then letting them rock away. Let's take a breath in with the legs away. Exhale as we pull them toward us. Find kind of a neutral in the middle position. Keep your right foot in the strap and release the left foot. Let that foot float to the floor. We're going to play a little bit with our IT band here. So you can keep the strap in either hand, slide the hands down the strap, let your elbows rest on the floor. We're going to swing the heel a little bit in one direction. So let's swing it so that the toes point toward our left shoulder. You should feel the stretch kind of going up the side of your leg. That's your IT band. And then keep the foot there as you begin to cross the very midline of your body. Just cross slightly, only maybe 6 inches over. You can really feel the stretch there. Deep breath. And then bring the foot back to center, straighten the toes, turn the toes the opposite direction. Now we're turning it toward the right shoulder, heel over toward the bottom left, and open the leg just a little bit. Take a breath. And come back to center. Nice. And let's bend the knee. If you can, cross the straps right at the knee joint, and we're just gonna straighten and bend the knee a few times. This is a nice deep stretch for the hamstring. Another variation of this would be to do it without the strap, pulling the knee in and letting the knee unbend. It's another way to stretch those hamstrings. Eventually the foot goes back up in the air. We swing the other leg up, but instead of putting it into the strap, we're gonna cross the ankle over in front of the other thigh. Okay, so take a breath here, deep breath. Now we're moving into stretching the outside of the other leg. Good. You can rock a little bit, side to side. And then back to center. Open the straps wide. Put that left foot up in the air with the right foot, both of them in the strap, and just see how they feel different. Noticing that proprioception, that awareness of your body. Eventually leaving the left leg in, we'll slide the right foot down, place it on the floor, take a breath. Keeping the hands on the straps, maybe take a little break, twist the fingers out a little bit. Coming back to center, we're gonna start to turn the foot. The toes pointing this time toward the right shoulder, the heel toward that bottom left corner of the mat. Good. And now begin to cross the midline of the body, not very far. You'll feel the stretch and you'll be like, okay, it's time to stop. And you need to listen to that voice inside your body. Breathing deep. Coming back to center. Swinging the toes now toward the left shoulder, heel toward the bottom right corner. Swing the legs slightly out. You can go about 12 inches, maybe a foot, and that's about it. And then come right back to center. Nice. Crossing the straps right at the knee joint, you can begin to bend the knee and then lift it up again. Or you can do the variation where you let go of the strap and pull the back of the leg toward you so that the thigh comes toward the belly. Both of these are acceptable. Really nice, easy ways to stretch that hamstring. Eventually, we'll just bend the knee. Oh, actually, we have to do the other side. Keeping the strap on the foot, sorry. We're gonna lift the foot that's on the floor and bring it up and cross the ankle in front of the other thigh. So here we are in our figure 4. Very last thing to do here today, maybe rock a little bit, take a big breath. Uncross the leg, plant it back on the floor. Let go of the strap. Very nice. Let's take the hands down by our sides and rock those hips from side to side. Now for some of you, you may want to do a really deep twist here. A really deep one would be what I would call twisted roots, where you're crossing the thighs, crossing the knees, maybe even hooking a foot behind the ankle or the calf of the other leg and scooting the hips away from the direction that the knees are going to fall. And then moving into that nice deep twist. You can always place a block underneath your hips. For me, that's way too much for my low back, so I like to keep my feet a little wider apart, scoot the hips again away from the direction that my knees are going to go, and let the knees drop over. Here you might want to put something between the legs. Take big, deep breaths. One more complete breath. And we'll breathe in all together, and on the exhale, bring the knees back up, scoot the hips to center, take a moment, make sure everything's in alignment, and then find the other side of your twist. whatever that is for you. Maybe stay for another breath, remembering to try to move on the exhale back to center. If you're wishing for an inversion, again, you can slide the block up under your hips. You can bring your legs up in the air for a little bit of waterfall. It's just a really nice way to end the practice and to begin it, actually. Breathe into your belly. And slowly let the feet float down to the floor whenever you're ready. If you want to keep them up longer, feel free to stay there for your whole Shavasana. As you feel ready, you'll move into whatever relaxing position works best for your body today. Just allowing the breath to move slow and steady. Moving back into that awareness that we lack nothing, that even in the midst of pain, there is good, that our bodies are a direct message to us. They message us, letting us know that maybe our thoughts need to change. Agitated thoughts create an agitated body, and vice versa, and it can become a vicious cycle. But in practicing yoga and practicing slow breathing and deep stretching, we can come back into balance and begin to heal. I'd like to end our practice today with one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. This is her poem called "What is there beyond knowing?" What is there beyond knowing that keeps calling to me? I can't turn in any direction, but it's there. I don't mean the leaves grip and shine, or even the thrush's silk song, but the far-off fires, for example, of the stars, heavens slowly turning, theater of light, or the wind playful with its breath, or time that's always rushing forward or standing still in the same, what shall I say, moment. What I know could be put in a pack, as if it were bread and cheese and carried on one shoulder. Important and honorable, but so small, while everything else continues unexplained and unexplainable. How wonderful it is to follow a thought quietly to its logical end. I have done this a few times, but mostly I just stand in the dark field in the middle of the world, breathing in and out. Life so far doesn't have any other name but breath and light, wind and rain. If there is a temple, I haven't found it yet. I simply go on drifting in the heaven of the grass and the weeds. May we all remember that we lack nothing. And may the piriformis muscle relax and release, and you get relief from pain. Namaste. Thank you.